secure the back of the bike around the swing arm. We start the disassembly. Your next step to replace the steering head bearings, I suggest you remove the fuel tank. Two fuel lines, 2 wing nuts after you open up the seat. Would hope if you own one of these you know how to do it by now. Remove the front wheel. Remove the calipers. We're going to take, because the fork seals are okay, we're not doing fork seals, we're taking the front end off with the fender. As Sean does that, we'll get this ready. You're going to pop these caps off the top. You're going to unscrew the big nut on each leg. This secures these fork legs to the upper triple clamp. Yes, it's just a cheesy little piece of stamped steel. A lot of people replace them with aftermarket billet aluminum upper triple clamps, etc., to get a little more rigidity out of the front end. This one already has a fork brace to help with that as well. That's about, so anyway, that's not our concern right now. Our handlebars are going to be removed after the front wheel and the calipers. We'll do the handlebars before we take these off. I'll outline that in a moment. Removal of the handlebars. Suck, to put it nicely. Sean's getting ahead of me. I was busy with something else here. You have the clamp on the top. Which goes through, and then you gotta get to the nuts underneath, which is a freaking bear. But anyway, that out of there. And now we can rotate this down and let that rest. Your next step is removal of the fork caps. Remember, the fork springs reside under them. They're under a little bit of tension. It's not going to put your eye out unless you got your face right over the cap looking at it going, what's in there? So don't be a dumbass. Just take the cap off. Keep your face away from it. You'll see how much pressure we have here in a moment. Not a whole lot. You can push these caps down with your hands, so it's not terrible. And there we go. That's it. Your final step to remove these forks from the triple clamps are going to be loosening your pinch bolts. You don't really need to take them out, they just need to be loosened. Now you can grasp both fork legs, and they might come down or they might not. Sometimes they won't go easily. So you have to carefully, and I mean fucking carefully, tap a screwdriver in just to spread the clamps apart a bit. Don't go grabbing on these and moving them around too much. You can break these lower triple clamps. And I'm sure BMW's giving those away as they do with all their parts. Not. And you're just going to twist as we see the fork springs inside the tube. Any luck over there? Being a miserable biatch. That's going. I got this side. I think I had it. Yeah, you need to shake the forks forward and back and get them to drop down more. Let's see this fucking side. What's that doing for you? It's going. Right there. Now you can take the front end, move it elsewhere. Right there's good. And that's what you're left with. Next step, remove the top triple clamp by removing this nut, lifting this plate off. Then you're going to lower the stem right out of the frame. And then we start removing bearing and bearing races. Moving right along, upper triple clamp is off. Now you remove this nut. If it's tight, you have this special BMW tool to loosen it. Just hook it in, turn it, clean it, put it away, spin the rest off by hand. Now here's the tricky part. That's not gonna come out. But actually it will. You have to be very careful not to stress this wiring and bolt that. Take your two mounting bolts out. The 12s, 13s.
The other side's.
The other side, oh, the other side's bigger. The other side's 27. Because there used to be an ignition in there. It's likely where our ignition is going to go back. So once we get this headlight unbolted and out of the way, our lower triple clamp will come out. We've already removed the steering damper. Why? Because the customer doesn't want it. Otherwise, we would just unhook it and disconnect it. In this case, it's coming apart. It's coming off. Okay, you're out. It's going to take 4 hands. Okay, lever one side down, and this side will clear, and we're out. Remember, this goes to your instruments, or to the handlebars rather. And now we have enough where the lower stem can come out. Sometimes these get stuck. This is one of those times. With a little attitude adjustment, we're free. There's your culprit. Look at the shitty caked on grease that is most likely that red BMW number 10 grease. Yeah, that's kind of the consistency of freaking baby shit. No, it might not be red grease, or it's been over. No, it's got some red to it. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I use a blue synthetic grease. But anyway, it is what it is. We're going to clamp this into the vise, extract the lower bearing, get in here, extract this bearing race. Unlike the Japanese, BMW had to be fucking different. Most Japanese bikes, you can catch the inner race with the drift coming up through here, down. BMW actually uses a bigger bearing, so the steering stem is made large at the top and the bottom to accommodate the bearing, which doesn't leave any lip exposed to catch with a drift. So what does BMW suggest you do? Why, of course, you buy their $400 fucking puller. And if you don't know what a monstrosity this fucking prick is to use, You haven't done these before. This goes in here. You tighten this up down here to split this apart to catch the edges, and then you got the little bit of a footprint for that to hold on to, and as you tighten the frickin' nut down, it lifts the bearing race out. There's better shit out there. There's easier stuff out there. This is an example. This tool, it's placed in there. It gets a little whack on the top. Harder than that. Maybe harder than that. We haven't used this tool yet. I just got it. The BMW puller wasn't agreeing with us, so I used the MIG welder on this one as well. And just to save time, because time is money and the day is slipping away here rapidly, we're going to do the same thing. On the bearing, on the steering stem, lower bearing. You take a chisel and a hammer and you're going to break the cage. Just like that. There's a little dust gasket on the bottom that's metal. You can split that too. It doesn't matter. We're replacing it anyway. Split it completely. Once you get the fucker split all the way, you're going to pry the cage apart, take all the bearings out, and that will leave the inner race left. And in a moment, we'll show you how to get that apart. You don't need that finger anyway. So there the cage is split. We use a magnet. Usually keep that big magnet right next to this while you're doing it in case it does just grenade and go everywhere. But that's what you want. You want all that shit off. And that leaves just the race inside. Now we're going to clean that up carefully. Gonna take the sharp edge down a little bit so you don't slice your finger off. The way I'm going to remove this, we want all the grease off of that right now. There's a few different methods to remove this lower bearing. You can heat it up with a torch and then try hitting the sides underneath with a chisel to get it to pop out. It's tapered down here, so once this comes up about an inch, inch and a half, it'll slide right off from there. So you can hit it with a punch. You can heat this up cherry red, hit this with a punch, and that'll then lift this up. You can just cut that with a grinding wheel, cut the bearing, not the steering stem, and then just split it apart. Or again, you can hit it with a MIG welder. And pop it up. We're going to give this a quick shot the way most people would have to do this. A little bit of MAP gas. I'm going to use an air hammer instead of just a chisel. Not that everybody has an air hammer. This is why I mentioned cleaning off all the grease. You can see it leaking out here. Pull it away for a minute. It's stinky. We have 360 degrees, 315 degrees Fahrenheit, 285. Let's hit it with a air. No, we're good. here. Hang on a... Yeah, either way. You can have that. I'll do this.
Pushing the whole thing out.
Shit. If I can hold that in place while we knock it up a little further.
It's kind of warm.
I don't need that. I'm not going to use the MIG welder on it. And that's it. It's out of here. Hey! I don't know what's down there, but you probably ought to do something about that. And that's it. Right, the inner part of the bearing is out. We're gonna spin this little fucking disc off here as soon as it cools off. I got it now. It's only skin. Sean's gonna go looking for the rest of that 240 degree-ish freaking item. I'm pretty sure it hit the floor. Anyway. Our bearing is replaced on the steering stem. Our mount has been removed. We are replacing the bolt holes with a bolt on the bottom and a grease fitting on the top. That way, the neck can be greased and the customer can keep pumping grease in to keep fresh grease in it. So you lessen the chances of grease hardening up and causing stiff steering.